Hello. I wanted to do a book inventory of what I'm reading these days. To let you know, I read really, really fast, and I have read thousands of books in my lifetime. And this is my current collection. I've got it's been about 6 months. I've stockpiled some stuff. I usually get rid of the books as soon as I get done with them. If I get it from the library, of course, I return it to the library. If I own it, I'll give it away or just leave it somewhere in public, hoping that someone will pick it up and read it. I often do that. So I've got all these books. This is my bookshelf. I took them all off. They fell over. I thought I would let everyone know what I'm reading these days, what I'm planning to read. This whole collection that I have, I'm guessing I'll probably go through it within 6 months to a year. I will go through them all, that's for sure. I specifically chose all of them because they looked interesting. I'm going to read things that look interesting. This one I got at the Goodwill store yesterday. The Human Comedy by William Saroyan, the classic American novel of an unforgettable California family. I don't know what it's about, but I've heard of it before. I thought I'd get that. Here's James Patterson. I don't read him too often. And Andrew Borelli. He's really popular, though. James Patterson wrote so many books, I can't believe it. This is Texas Outlaw. Oh, my battery's running low. I hope I have enough power to get through this video. Texas Outlaw. Okay, let's see here. George R. R. Martin, of course, the author of Game of Thrones series, or also known as A Song of Fire and Ice, Ice and Fire. This is Wild Cards. It's part of a series. The cover looks interesting. Guy playing guitar in a building, guy flying through the air, guy glowing, lifting a tank. That looks like Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. I don't know. The book looks pretty interesting. I have no idea what it's about, though. Here's a Pulitzer Prize winner. She's won the Pulitzer Prize a couple times, and I have both of them. This one's called Postcards. Winner of the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award. The Shipping News is the other one. I have that around here somewhere. By E. Annie Proulx, if that's how you say her name. So that's probably going to be good. I've read some Pulitzer Prize winning books in my lifetime. This is by Wilbur Smith. It's a book one in a series of three. This is called Birds of Prey. I picked that up in jail, actually. Here's another book that I picked up in jail. One of the employees, one of the people working there, got it for me. Of course, this is a different translation than the one that I've had a translation that is very specific. I've had it a couple times, but I never got to finish it, and I've lost the copy a couple times, and I might get that one again instead. But of course, War and Peace, one of the greatest novels of all time, Leo Tolstoy. I started reading it, but I never finished it, so I'm not sure if I'll read that translation or not. But it was very nice of that guy to get it for me. Here's Nelson DeMille. He's known for his books, the book characters called John Corey. John Corey is this terrorist fighter. He's a cop, and he goes after terrorists and stuff. I read all the books in that series except for the most recent one. He just put out a new one. This is Word of Honor. It's a standalone novel. It doesn't have that character, and I read it before. I picked this up at the store by accident for $1 or so. I hadn't realized that I read it before, so I might not read that one. I'm not sure. I'll read a book again if I like it a lot. I can't remember what I thought of that one, so I might read it again. Here's James A. Michener. He's best known for Tales of the South Pacific. They made a musical called South Pacific, and it won the Pulitzer Prize. It's the first book that he ever wrote, actually. And also, he's known for a book called Texas. This is Alaska. I've also read a book called Poland by him. It's a huge book. It's a hardcover too. This is The Second Machine Age: Work, Progress, and Prosperity in a Time of Brilliant Technologies by Eric Bryn Jolson and Andrew McAfee. It's nonfiction. Here's Prince of the Clouds. a novel by Gianni Riotta. I'm not sure what that one's about. I found this one at my local. It's a this little library share box that they put, and it's in the neighborhood. There's two of them around here. It's like a little mailbox that people just. It's a lending library. People just put their used books in there, and they trade. We could trade. Neighbors can trade through that. Check it routinely and see if there's anything good. So I get books from there on occasion. Revenge of the Wannabes. This is like a teenage girl novel, I guess. A click novel by Lacey Harrison. I don't know. It looked like it was short and sweet, and I thought I'd check it out. I don't know. Look like some evil bitches on the cover. Here's Ian Pear's Arcadia, a novel. I have no idea what it's about. If you notice, most of my books are novels. I love reading fiction. This one looks. The title looks interesting. I like the cover too. The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barberi. Never heard of it. Here's Jung. I'm sure this is about dreams. C.G. Jung, The Undiscovered Self. Real short volume. Well used. I'm not sure where I got that. I forgot. Here's a book in the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. I'm not sure what number it is in the series, but The Vampire Armand. Here's a book by C.S. Lewis. I just read him recently. I read Mere Christianity, and I didn't really care for it too much. I don't really care for C.S. Lewis writing that much. I read the Chronicles of Narnia, all the books in the Chronicles of Narnia, and the first one was good, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but I didn't really care for it too much. But I thought I'd give him another try. I picked this up somewhere along the way. I'm not sure where, but Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. Here's a book. Stephen King's one of my favorite authors of all time. I'm sure he's a favorite author of a lot of people. And this one is book 4 in the Dark Tower series, Wizard and Glass. And it's actually a prequel. It tells the story of the gunslinger and what his days were like before he went on a search for the Dark Tower. And I've read this a few times, but I always forget his backstory. So I can't seem to retain this book for some reason. I always forget it. So I picked it up again to see if I can get the gunslinger story and remember it this time. Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Years ago, I listened to this on Books on Tape. A lot of knowledge about, a lot of facts about whales. I remember that part, but okay, let's see here. Charles Dickens, of course, I love Charles Dickens. Great Expectations. I've read this before, but I don't remember it very well. I do remember I liked it, so I got it again. This was a great bestseller when it came out. It was a huge, huge hit. The Horse Whisperer. They made a movie with Robert Redford by Nicholas Evans. Here's The Odyssey by Homer. One of the oldest books in the world. This one's pretty old too. Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. Real popular book when it came out. Still sells to this day. Here's a book by Salman Rushdie, who's known for the Satanic Verses. This is called Midnight's Children. Winner of the Booker Prize, best book in 25 years. I've always wanted to read Salman Rushdie. This one looks really cool. The Big Bad Book of Bill Murray, a critical appreciation of the world's finest actor. And there he is lounging on a couch with something like some fruit peel or something on the floor. I don't know. He's like tissue paper or something. Wow, bad Bill. Anyhow, it looks like it might be pretty cool. Naoki Higashida, The Reason I Jump, the inner voice of a 13-year-old boy with autism. Here's a collection of Jane Austen books, all in one volume. Her complete novels: Pride and Prejudice, Emma, which I read. I read Emma. That was a good one. That's the only one I ever read by her. Northanger Abbey, Sense and Sensibility, which was a good movie. That was one of Kate Winslet's first movies. A great movie. I like Alan Rickman. He was real good in that one. Persuasion, Mansfield Park, and Lady Susan. I never heard of Lady Susan, but I've heard of the other ones. Here's The Absolute Diary, True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. National Book Award winner. Young adult young adult novel. The Education of Little Tree by Forrest Carter. Book of the Year, Abbey Award winner. I've never heard of an Abbey Award. I don't know what that is. Here's D.H. Lawrence. I read Lady Chatterley's Lover. Absolutely loved it. One of the greatest books I've ever read, actually. Sons and Lovers. It's also a well-known book that he wrote. Here's a classic. It doesn't get more classic than Uncle Tom's Cabin, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Here's Tom Clancy's first book, The Hunt for Red October. Of course, they made a movie, big hit movie with Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin. Here's Dracula by Bram Stoker. This is the first novel of all time, written back in the early 1600s or late 1500s by Miguel de Cervantes, a former slave. Don Quixote, over 1,000 pages long. It's a comedy. I've read it before. It's a great book. Really good. Yeah, this is considered the first novel of all time. I really like that one. Life of Pi by Jan Martel. They made a movie, a Bollywood movie, I think. I saw the movie, but I don't remember it very well. It's about a tiger, I know that, and a boy in a boat. But I've heard the book has a good reputation. It's supposed to be very good, so I can't wait to read that one. Here's a novelization of the movie The Elephant Man by David Lynch, directed by David Lynch. This is by Christine Sparks, now a major motion picture from Paramount. The Elephant Man. Here's another book in the Vampire Chronicles. This is the third book in the series. This is where I'm at. I read the first two, Interview with the Vampire, and the Vampire Lestat. This is the third one, The Queen of the Damned, by Anne Rice. And they made a movie with Aaliyah before she died. Here's a translation of it's a retelling of The Pilgrim's Progress in today's English by John Bunyan, retold by James H. Thomas. It's Christian fiction. It's a really well-known book, Pilgrim's Progress. Here's another huge bestseller when it came out. They made a movie with Clint Eastwood and Meryl Streep, The Bridges of Madison County by Robert James Waller. This is one of the greatest novels I've ever read. If you haven't noticed, I like to reread things. When I really like a book, I'll reread it. Most of the stuff I haven't read before, though. But this is one I did. And I found it at the local, the one down the street, the mailbox that they share, the library share box. I couldn't believe that this, this jewel was actually in there by Wallace Stegner, Angle of Repose, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. It was a great book when I read it. I remember the first time I read that. It was great. Here's Bill O'Reilly's Killing Jesus written by Bill O'Reilly and Martin Dugard. He also wrote Killing Lincoln and Killing Kennedy, which I read. I read Killing Kennedy. Someone gave this to me. Someone I know. Thought I should try it out. He bought it at the airport, actually, and decided to give it to me. Into the Magic Shop, a neurosurgeon's true story of the life-changing magic of compassion and mindfulness by Dr. James R. Doty. It's a nonfiction book. Here's a book. It's almost 100 years old, actually, by Dale Carnegie. It's a classic self-help book. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the only book you'll need to lead you to success. This is a great book. I read it before. I loved it. I remember I wrote an email to all my friends suggesting that they read that book right after. I was so influenced by it. I wanted everybody to read it after. I was so excited. Here's James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. This book is like some sort of stream of consciousness kind of like dream or something that like a dream-like fiction book that he wrote. And it starts and ends with the same sentence. I heard it's a difficult read, but I thought I'd give it a shot. They made a movie. They made a movie of this one called The Mambo Kings. But the full title is The Mambo Kings Play Songs of Love. It's a well-known book. I think it might have won the Pulitzer Prize. It doesn't say it on the cover though. It won some sort of award or something. I'm not sure. But anyways, by Oscar Hajulios. Here's one I read before. I read this right after 9/11 happened, or during that time. I think it was right before it, actually. It stands out to me that time period when I read this. Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, who I really like. I like Dostoevsky's stuff. This was a great book. Here's a guy I like. I haven't read this one yet. One of my favorite authors, Pat Conroy, author of Prince of Tides and The Great Santini and Lords of Discipline. This is My Losing Season. Here's a guy. He goes by T.C. Boyle because his middle name is so hard to pronounce. Cora Gesson Boyle. Most people just call him T.C. Boyle. I read several of his books. This is the one that he's most known for, The Road to Wellville. They made a film with Anthony Hopkins back in the day. And it's about Kellogg, the guy who, the cereal guy, the guy who made Kellogg cereal. He put a historical figure in a fictional setting or fictional story. So that might be interesting. I've wanted to read it for years and years and years. So finally got a copy of it. I remember watching Anne of Green Gables, the PBS miniseries, back in 1986 when I was in third grade. I was living in Springfield, Virginia. It stands out on one of my childhood memories, my experience with this television series. It's by L.M. Montgomery, Lucy Maud Montgomery. And she wrote several books with Anne in it. It's a series. That's one I've always wanted to read. Here's Ken Follett, one of my favorite authors. He's most known for The Pillars of the Earth and all its sequels. This is the Modigliani scandal. Here's F. Scott Fitzgerald, who wrote The Great Gatsby, of course. I just read The Great Gatsby a couple months ago. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. The Beautiful and the Damned. This is another one he's known for. Beautiful and Damned. Here's one. The Story of the World's Literature by John Macy. The famous book that has revolutionized the reading of literature. Here's an author I've heard of. It's a classic. Wilkie Collins, The Moonstone. I've never heard of that book. Here's another classic. It's an old copy, hardcover. The Age of Innocence by Edith Wharton. Here's the other book by her, E. Annie Parlix. Also, one of the Pulitzer Prize, The Shipping News. I've heard of this one. I've been wanting to read that. They made a movie of this book with Julia Roberts and Javier Bardem, the guy who played the bad guy in No Country for Old Men. This is a romance movie they did. Here's the book, Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is an author that I like, Graham Greene. I read a couple of his books and really enjoyed it. A Burnt Out Case. I never heard of that one. Here's a book that I've had my hands on a couple times, but I always seem to lose it or misplace it or not get to it. But I finally gonna read it. Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. It's supposed to be good. Here's a biography of Elizabeth Taylor. It's a good picture of her. Elizabeth by J. Randy Tura Borelli. The next three books are all by the same guy. Two of them are pretty big. This is one of them. Peking, an epic novel of the 20th century China. He seems to write about Asian countries. It's a pretty big book. This is the thinner one. Tokyo Bay by Anthony Gray, a novel of Japan. This one is called Saigon by Anthony Gray, an epic novel of Vietnam. That's the biggest one. Looks like it's about 800 pages. Okay, I'm gonna stand up. I got a couple of books that I left on my shelf. These are from the library. Stephen King, who I told you I love him. This is book one in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy. It's called the Bill Hodges trilogy. Mr. Mercedes is the first book. They made a miniseries out of it. 3 seasons it was on. Here's the first season, DVD, Mr. Mercedes. They made a TV show out of it. It seems like a lot of 3 seasons is a lot of shows for one book. They must have really stretched out the story somehow. This one is If It Bleeds, one of his newer ones. It's a collection of stories. Stephen King. This is Lacey's story, one of his lesser known books. Here's Just After Sunset, a collection of stories. And here's some stuff I got from the Lender's Library mailbox in our neighborhood. I checked 2 of them today and got some stuff. I got these today. This is 18th century English drama and all these titles. Edited with an introduction by Joseph Woodcrutch. This is a Newbery Award winner, which is the award for teenage books, young adult books. It's about a story about a gorilla, The One and Only Ivan, by Catherine Applegate. It looks pretty new. This looked interesting by the cover. Bliss, the title sounded kind of cool. Frederick Solkup, Bliss. This one made me laugh. The title, this is by Joe Nesbo. Dr. Proctor's Fart Powder. There is the kid blasting off into the air. I bet that's pretty funny. Here's Pictures of Hollis Woods. Newbery Honor Book. So it didn't win the award, but it got an honorary mention. Patricia Riley Giff. Here's a kid's book that looked kind of, a picture book that looks funny. Enemy Pie. For My Best Enemy. By Derek Manson. This is a book that I read when I was a kid. One of the first things I ever read, actually. The Five Chinese Brothers by Claire Huget Bishop and Kurt Weiss. I'll always remember that story from when I was a child. Here's what I'm reading. I got this chair yesterday, by the way, at the Goodwill store for $40. It was like brand new, and it's so comfortable. It was quite a steal. Here's the one that I'm reading right now. Let's Pretend This Never Happened, with a mouse on the cover, like Hamlet. It's by Jenny Lawson, author of Furiously Happy. She's mostly known for Furiously Happy. It was a big bestseller. I read that one. That was her second book. This is her first one. A mostly true memoir. She writes these. She's this person with a mental illness who writes all these. Someone recommended her to me. She writes these books about her life, and they're comedies. You know, she's got like a wicked sense of humor, and she's a highly functional, mentally ill person, I guess. She's a best-selling author now. It just goes to show you, if you're struggling, you can persevere. Here's her third book. She's written 3 books. Jenny Lawson. Here's a picture of her. It's a cartoon of her. This one's called Broken in the Best Possible Way. These are all books that I keep them under my desk, by my bed. They're all the stuff that I'm currently reading. John Irving, The Last Chairlift. This is his most current book. He says it's going to be his last big book that he ever writes. He's mostly known for The World According to Garp. I love John Irving's books. I love the best one he ever wrote was A Prayer for Owen Meany. And he's also known for the Cider House Rules. But John Irving's pretty popular. Dennis Lehane, he's known for his book Shutter Island. They made a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio. It was a pretty trippy movie. This is Mystic River. Also made a movie with Sean Penn. Mystic River. Sean Penn won the Academy Award for Best Actor that year. Here's a book that I've always wanted to read. I'm very disappointed in it so far. I've read this much. I started about 4 months ago, and I just can't get through it, but I'm going to. I promised myself I'm going to get through it, but I'm really taking my time. I put it to the side. Shogun by James Clavell. It tends to carry on it rambles on and on about the history of samurais, and it doesn't focus enough on the main character. So, at least in the beginning of the book. So, I put it to the side about 4 months ago, but I will finish it. Let's see here. What else I got? Beverly Cleary, The Mouse and the Motorcycle. There's like 3 or 4 books, and this is the first one in the series. Ralph S. Mouse. Beverly Cleary is a well-known children's author. I used to read her all the time when I was a kid. I loved her. One of my favorite authors of all time. She's mostly known for the Ramona Quimby books, like One of the Pest. Here's one I don't know what it's about, but it's another young adult book, Lucy, by Jamaica Kincaid. This one looks kind of cool. It's another kid's book that I picked up somewhere. The Nose from Jupiter by Richard Scrimger. The Christopher Award, Book Award. I never heard of that award. Here's Jackie Collins. She writes these trashy novels. Back in the 80s, she was writing these trashy novels about the Hollywood lifestyle. This is Hollywood Wives, one of her well-known books. 40th anniversary edition. Got at Barnes & Nobles. Couldn't find it at the library, so I picked it up at Barnes & Nobles. I rarely go to Barnes & Nobles and buy stuff because it's so expensive, but I usually pick up, books at the Goodwill for a couple bucks, or I get them for free, or someone gives them to me, or I find them somewhere or whatever. But on occasion, I go to Barnes & Nobles and pick up stuff when I can't find it at the library. And I read I read the second book. It's called Hollywood Husbands, and I really liked it, so I thought I'd get the first one. Here's another Stephen King book. It's over 900 pages. It's a huge book. Collection of short stories, Nightmares and Dreamscapes. I just watched the miniseries. They had a miniseries and showed acted out stories in the book. It was pretty good. So Jack Kerouac's first book, his first novel, The Town and the City. He's known for On the Road. On the Road was a modern classic. He started the Beat Generation with authors Allen Ginsberg, who's a poet, and author William S. Burroughs, who's also well known. But Jack Kerouac's, I really like his book Desolation Angels. I read that. Most of his books, almost everything he's written, is all about him and his friends, and he kind of fictionalizes it by changing the names, but most of the situations are true. His first book, though, this one, The Town and the City, is pure fiction. He started off writing, a make believe story, but couldn't sell it, so he decided to write about his own life. And he was very successful about with that. Here's Kurt Vonnegut, one of my favorite authors of all time. He's great. This guy's hilarious. Mostly known for Slaughterhouse-Five, Breakfast of Champions, Cat's Cradle, among others. Dead-Eye Dick, Hocus Pocus. I can name almost all of his books. Bagumbo Snuffbox. This is a collection of short stories. I've had this one. I got this one from the library one time, but I never read it, so I got it again. Gore Vidal, who's an author, who's pretty famous. Hollywood. I think that's pretty much everything I have, but that is a lot of books, so it's gonna keep me very busy. I think this is the last one. I got this. Here's the bag. I got this from Barnes and Nobles yesterday, actually. And I was in the aisle and I saw this huge book. This is like a computer manual. It's so big, but it's a novel. It's called Miss Mackintosh, My Darling by Marjorie Young. I never heard of the author. I never heard of the book. There's no description on the back. It just says it's the most ambitious and remarkable literary achievement of our time. And so it sold me. And I thought, well, I'll get it from the library for free. So I went on my app of the Seattle Public Library here, and I couldn't find it. So I had to actually buy it. It was $30. And it's pretty big. It's 1,300 pages, and it'll keep me busy for a while. But anyhow, sorry if I bored everybody. I just thought it'd be interesting to see what I have. And for all you non-readers out there, you don't know what you're missing.